Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in for this episode of Adventures of the Awakened Heart. My name is Julie Tara, and I'll be your host here. And if you want to learn more about me, you can look at the links below. And I started this podcast because I just felt so passionate about this shift that's happening on our planet and this movement into the heart and really coming from our awakened heart as much as we know how. And so that's why I'm doing it. So I love it that you're here. And I am super excited that I have a fabulous friend of mine who I'm going to introduce to you. And her name is Kylie. And let me tell you a little about Kylie, and then we'll get her on right here. So hang on. Kylie Attwell is an author, a content curator, and a facilitator for self-transformation. Her skills and services take a multidisciplinary approach based on the latest therapeutic modalities and brain science. In her Brisbane practice, she conducts one-on-one consultations and energy assessments to ascertain where clients are on their journey, and then provides personalized guidance to help change the printout of their life. She also facilitates belief change, emotional release, and hands-on healing sessions to relieve stress and anxiety. Kylie is also the author of a hands-on book called Find Your Purpose, Change Your Life. And I will absolutely put the link below. I have read it. It is fabulous. I'm going to recommend you get it and read it for yourselves. So, Kylie, hello. I'm thrilled you're here from Australia.
Hi, Julie. It's so lovely to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And Kylie, just for the benefit of our audience, I want to share that we met each other in California, didn't we, at the Conscious Life Expo?
That's correct. It was in late January last year. So
yes. And you came into our Gaia room and we just had this connection that was sort of beyond words. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, there you are. And I just love you already immediately. And we just we're like, I don't know, like two sisters right off the bat.
it's so true, Julie. It was just such a synchronistic moment. So, and that's certainly been a big part of the way my life is unfolding now. These just magical moments. So you were certainly meeting you was certainly one of those key moments for me. That's for sure.
I love that. And I remember that Charlie and the other guys there saying, oh, who is this woman? You must know her really well. And I'm like, I just met her, but no, really, I feel like I've known her all my life. And on the way home on the plane, I read your book and just loved it. And so thank you for creating that and for all the work you're doing in this world to help us heal and move forward with our soul purpose. So you're a very gifted woman.
Thanks, Julie. It's my absolute pleasure. It's a thing that just I love, so dearly. It's my purpose. So
That's perfect. Isn't it great when we can get on purpose and just do our thing? I think that's the thing that makes us happiest, and it just everything falls into place like a jigsaw puzzle when that occurs.
it really does. Yeah. It was a turning point for me was finding it and embodying it. Having the right tools to be able to do that was so important.
Yeah.
Particularly after a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression, it was really only when I found my purpose that, as you said, that's when everything starts to fall into place.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about that. But first off, just since we met through Gaia, and this is for our Gaia community to really sort of highlight our phenomenal members, what is it about Gaia? What is it that you feel is the most sort of important asset of it for you?
Well, for me, it's been absolutely integral with regards to me personally as well as professionally. So, obviously, as like a content curation perspective, um, I'm always using it as a resource reference, and by that I mean a lot of the teachers or people that I call teachers that I reference on both my website and in my books. Are all featured on Gaia to start with. So for me, when I'm recommending clients, it's just the perfect sort of segue for them to actually learn more about those teachers or actually sort of hear it from the horse's mouth rather than not my interpretation of it, but sort of my introduction of it. So it just really dovetails together beautifully with the content that I write about, and it really supports the content that I write about. So that's one of the key elements professionally, but also it's like an amazing research tool for me, because Gaia's just always producing so much content every week, that it really keeps me abreast of any advancements, whether it be in healing or even in processes for really overcoming those subconscious programs that are holding us back in life. So definitely from that research resource tangent, and then personally, it's also about provides me with the just the inspiration. For most people, they'll turn on a series on commercial television and zone out. Well, for me, it's the complete opposite. I'll get onto Gaia, and I'll be listening to something like ancient civilizations, or it could even be something to do with alien technology, or even about the mummies from Nazca in Peru. So just anything to do with the mysteries of the world, and there's just so many great interviewers on Gaia. Regina Meredith's one of my favorites, as well as George Norrie. So they really keep me inspired personally.
That's so fantastic. And I'm hoping, Kylie, that one day you'll be on there, being interviewed, by Regina on Open Minds, because it is such a super show, and it's so perfect with what you do. And I love it that you help curate the wisdom, of all these different teachers. So let's talk about you and your spiritual journey. When would you say you began that? What happened? Where did it start?
Yeah, well, I've been on this journey for over 2 decades. And as I mentioned before, I've had a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression. And I really thought it was due to the environment that I grew up in. And so when I left school, I set out on a mission to basically attain everything that I thought would make me feel happy. And by the time I reached my late 20s, I really had achieved all the things I set out to do, and that was to, to gain a secure and lucrative career, acquire a dream home. I had a classic car, had designer things, and really busy social life, and heaps of friends. Except, Julie, at that point, I was absolutely miserable. I couldn't believe it, because I'd been working so hard all of this time to acquire all these material things, and I've just felt so deeply hollow and unhappy. And I truly thought that there was something fundamentally wrong with me as a person. So it was a really heartbreaking time, to be honest, to sort of acquire sort of all those goals, and then and just there'd be nothing there, and it just feels so empty. So being a logical person, that's really when my journey began, my search for meaning. And so I started by changing careers, and I ended up changing careers 4 times. I got married and then divorced. I mistook my a passion for my purpose, and I ended up almost broke, and that was literally financially and emotionally. I spent thousands of dollars on workshops, seminars, and events, trying to work it all out. But I really found that the more I searched, the more lost and confused that I felt. But by the time I reached my early 40s, I ended up having a life-changing experience that turned everything on its head very quickly and dramatically, and that was most exciting. So that was a real turning point for me. That was that heart awakening experience that I had.
And we're absolutely going to go there right away, because it's so heartening in a way to hear what you're saying, because I think heartening in the sense that so many people have this experience of having a high success, and it all looks so great, and it's like, yeah, it's what I wanted, but it actually isn't the true soul path, and it's very confusing. So I think people will really appreciate hearing your whole story on this. And so the awakened heart, which is literally what I heard for this podcast, was this is what it's supposed to be called, because life is an adventure. So Adventures of the Awakened Heart. Okay, let's go. And so what does the awakened heart mean to you? And then let's go into this story in depth.
Yeah. So, and first I just want to say, I absolutely love the term an awakened heart, it means so much more to me. It's so much more clarifying than even follow your heart. So I just want to really acknowledge that, Julie, that I think you really nailed it when it came to that title. So, but for me, an awakened heart is really living a heart-centered life. And by that I mean like really knowing yourself at your core, hearing, acknowledging, and aligning with your heart's deepest desires and needs, regardless of what anyone else thinks, and regardless of how logical or unconventional that wisdom that you're receiving from the heart may seem. So so that for me is really about living that heart-centered, awakened life. And the other thing I want to reiterate too is that it's about allowing others to do the same. So allowing them to actually have, make their own choices from their heart. So, I always think about when I sort of, relaying with people or with partners or with clients, it's like, these are my needs. Tell me, what are your needs? And how can we compromise so that both of our needs are met, so that neither one of us are not fulfilling our deepest needs and desires. And I truly feel that that's so important. The other thing I want to say is that it really speaks to the heart-brain coherence and heart math research and all the information that they share and their technology. So so it just dovetails beautifully. There's a lot of science behind it as to why that the wisdom of the heart is so important. So thank you.
That is so beautiful. It is true that when we I love what you're saying also about how you ask others, because that sounds extremely co-creative to me. And I love co-creativity, where you shine and I shine, like we shine together. It's so beautiful. And we are all a little different. We're all deeply the same. I think we're all made of love, fundamentally pure love. And yet we have a different nuance of how we bring that forward. So I love what you're saying here about this sort of co-creative process that you go into with people. What are your needs? What are my needs? How do we make this work?
Yeah. And when you just said that, Julie, I've just got chills all over. So you're really, speaking such a deep truth there. So thank you.
If our whole world worked co-creatively together, right? Well, we're learning. We're learning.
We are learning. We're learning.
Yeah.
We're creating together right now, you and I.
Yes, exactly. So let's hear your story. I can't wait. Let's hear.
Oh my goodness. Well,
for you.
It's a story and a half, I can tell you, and I'll try and keep it really short and succinct, because when I tell this story in the detail that it really warrants, it can take almost a couple of days to sort of unpack it all, so that you truly understand all the little synchronicities and nuances that occurred. But obviously we don't have 2 days, so again I'll keep it short. But anyone that's heard it in that detail have really said to me, Kylie, this should be made into a movie, and it really was a turning point for me. So I'll start off by saying that it all started in 2012 when I ended up venturing to the USA and Mexico, and just to give you a bit of context. So before that trip, which I can honestly say was the best 6 weeks of my life, I was actually working. So my background, I have a long and varied career history, but my background at that time was in event management, and I was working on a major children's festival as a general manager. And so I was under extreme amounts of pressure, and I literally put my whole life on hold just to be able to deliver this festival at the standard and quality that I wanted to personally achieve. But it meant that I just lost absolutely all sense of myself. So I was literally getting up, eating, going to work, coming home, eating, going to bed, and it was just this cycle. And it was getting close to almost 7 days a week because we were about to deliver the festival. And I was just absolutely miserable. I just could not wait to get out of there. And I actually caught up with 2 dear astrologer friends of mine, and I've been studying astrology under them, over a few years. And one of them said to me that she was going on this amazing trip to the Yucatan in Mexico at the end of 2012 for, it's kind of like a conference, but then there were like other tours and with lots of renowned presenters such as Greg Brennan, and then Ombudsman, which is main elder, was going to be there as well, and Saint Germain. And the moment she mentioned that trip to me, I was just like, oh my goodness, that is just something I've always dreamed of doing. And I'm like, well, how do I not, how can I find out more about it? And then, I was kind of concerned that if I did go, that she'd think, well, she's just tagging along with me and things like that. So after leaving those two ladies, I could not stop thinking about it. It just kept playing over and over in my mind. And my heart was just saying, yes, 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 you've got to go. But my head just said, no, this is just, no, it's illogical. You don't have time to plan this. What are you going to do? Like all of these crazy questions. It'll probably be sold out, blah, blah, blah. And so, but it wouldn't leave my mind. So I got home and after a couple of days ended up researching and finding out there's still places available, which I kind of couldn't believe given that it was such a historic event in time, the ending of the main calendar. And so I found out there was still some places left, and I was still having that war in my mind and with my heart. And then I received in my email within about 2 days an email from Qantas, which is our airline provider here in Australia, and they were having this big sale. And so I thought, okay, well, if I can get a decent amount, a decent flight, I'll go. And so that's pretty much how I said yes. Was this synchronistic moment occurred where I received the flight, and I just went, I'm going to do it. So the way I booked the flight, it allowed me to be there in the USA and Mexico for 6 weeks all up. So I'd fly into LA from Brisbane, and then I knew I'd have about 10 days before I needed to be in Mexico for the tour that I was going to do. And that was actually with Greg Brennan. So we had, I think, about 12 days with Greg first as a pre-tour, and then we had the conference afterwards. So all up, I was there. I knew I was going to be there for about 3 weeks. And so I was really excited about that. And I knew that component of the trip was like just absolutely done and dusted. But then I was going to have about another 10 days afterwards, which I didn't really know how I was going to fill in my time. So that for me was the big conundrum, because I really, and I want to say now, I had no idea who I was. So I really didn't know how I wanted to spend my time other than this amazing journey that I was going to be having among the Mayan ruins in the Yucatan, hearing great content with these amazing presenters, a lifelong dream. Well, what on earth was I going to do with myself for 20 days, in America? And I'm just not a touristy kind of girl. So things like, shopping on Rodeo Drive, visiting Disneyland or Hollywood or Broadway, they just didn't resonate with me at all. But I didn't know what did. And so that was really difficult. So after booking that flight, I got so busy with the work I was doing that I didn't actually make any plans whatsoever, other than I had the flight and I had the Mexico component booked. And I got on the plane and I didn't even know where I was going to stay in LA that first night. And, Julie, it was the best decision I've ever made. From an event manager who's actually, so conditioned to plan everything down to the very last detail, squeeze absolutely everything in, make it as perfect as possible. Well, that had all gone out the window. So, and as I said, best decision I ever made. So what ended up unfolding in those 6 weeks was some of the most synchronistic events. I had magical experiences that I could never have planned or curated myself. I met people that embraced me with open arms and showered me with their generosity. I met like-minded people who have become dear friends today, and I know that they'll end up being lifelong friends. Opportunities that, to go and see places that I'd only ever dreamed of also showed up as well. And I think for me, aside from all of those amazing things, for the very first time, my life flowed. And I was able to finally embrace the feelings of joy, freedom, and awe in life itself. It was just, I just get goosebumps even thinking about it, because everything just fell together. And as I said, to go into the detail, it was just every day I would just be, I think to myself, oh my goodness, my day could not have, this trip can't get any better, because I just have such an amazing day. And then something else would happen the next day that would top it off even more. It was just truly crazy. So I just want to give you a specific example to kind of like tie it all up, because again, I could go into so much detail about it. But as I said earlier, before I left Australia, I truly didn't know who I was or what I wanted to experience in America. Obviously, Mexico, I had that nailed, as I said. But the one, and I sort of looked into, oh, well, I'll start in LA and then I might go to New York and I'll do San Fran, because that's sort of typical thing that an Aussie would do when they're traveling in the States. They're kind of like the big three cities that you'll visit. So that's what I kind of vaguely thought in my mind. And then the one thing I really knew that I wanted to see was Falling Water, which is in West Pennsylvania. And that's actually the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright's most iconic house. It's just absolutely legendary. And because I love architecture and interior design, I was like, oh, I would just love to see that house, top of my list. And when I looked at the map and thought, okay, well, LA, New York, San Fran, I thought, well, West Pennsylvania is nowhere near any of those. So I actually sort of thought, I kind of discounted it. I just did not think that it would be possible to visit, there this trip around. And so I thought, okay, I'll definitely go back again. And so I will, I'll do it my next trip round. And so anyway, I ended up and I want to sort of reiterate here that because I've not planned anything, I was literally following my heart and my nose the whole way. I did have a little, I'll confess, it wasn't all magic at the beginning. When I got to LA, I had 2 days in LA where I was trying to get telecommunications sorted. And I had a complete meltdown because the things that you would typically do here in Australia weren't working there. And it just seemed so much harder than what it should have been. And a big part of it is because I didn't have a physical address in the US. And so that really kind of started to unravel things. And I was thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? I paid all this money. I can't believe I haven't planned it. All of those fears and doubts and negative self-talk really came to pass. And so I had to have a good talking to myself. I took myself out to dinner and I said, right, we've got to, because I was almost tempted to get on a plane and go back home again, which is just ridiculous. And it's not in my nature at all. So I had a good talking to myself and mapped out a way that I could get to where I needed to be in Mexico without actually double backing on anything. And I just kind of based it on the things that people had told me about over the years in terms of, you can catch a train. It's an amazing train journey on the Amtrak from LA to San Diego, and then you should hire a car and drive through the Arizona desert. It's an amazing experience. And like Tucson's incredible, and Phoenix and Sedona, you have to see Sedona. So these are all the things that kind of were bubbling around in my head. So I did all of those things and I ended up through another recommendation in Santa Fe. And I actually was meeting the only person that I knew in America, aside from a couple of family members who were in New Jersey. And so the only person I was meeting in America that I knew was this woman in Santa Fe. And when we met, I didn't realize that she was a complete hermit and she didn't want to go out. She didn't want to do anything. So after kind of meeting with her for an hour, that was it. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Like, why did I come all this way to Santa Fe for this, hour-long conversation? But again, I just put it aside as a learning experience. And I got up the next day and I drove to Taos and I was on my way back to Santa Fe and I had a late lunch. And so it was really easy for me to go back to my B&B. I thought, there's no point in going back to your B&B. You're on the other side of the world. You can go back home anytime you like when you're in Brisbane, Australia. Just go and get some dinner and then go home then. And I was planning on actually leaving Santa Fe the next day. I went and this restaurant in Santa Fe with my credit card, and my phone had run out of battery power. So I think it was a credit card and my car keys. And I sat down and had dinner, and I was by myself and just reflecting on the day, but I didn't have a journal or a magazine to read, and I was kind of shoved right in the corner, so there's sort of nothing to do. So I was kind of almost like powering through my meal to then leave, which was a bit disappointing. And then the restaurant actually sat two people next to me, and they just started chatting to me straight away. And this is where that whole generosity comes into it. Started chatting away. They heard my accent. They wanted to know who I was, where I was from, and what I was doing. And I kid you not, they both ended up just taking me under their wing. They convinced me to stay another day in Santa Fe. They wanted to be my tour guide in Santa Fe and make sure that I had, the New Mexican food and true Santa Fe experience. And I kid you not, that opportunity, I could have missed those people by half an hour. Like there was a half an hour window that, and I'm getting chills just even talking about it now, half an hour window in which that changed the whole experience of my trip. Fast forward I go to Mexico, and I'm staying in contact with these people, and we'd had so much fun that one of them actually lived in Pennsylvania, and they said, hey, when you're going to be in New York, I'd love to be your tour guide in New York. So let me know, let's keep in touch and let me know when you're back, and we'll catch up. And I said, okay, great. So having a wonderful time in Mexico. And then my aunt, who I had not seen since I was a little girl, who lives in New Jersey, and I contacted her before I was coming to say, hey, I'll be in the States. She contacted me and said, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but I have to cancel family Christmas because, some sort of crisis had come up. So I said, oh, okay, that's okay. It's a shame I won't see you, but, I understand. And so, I updated my friend, and he said to me, well, that's terrible. You can't spend Christmas by yourself. You must come to Pennsylvania to have family Christmas with my family and have a traditional, American family Christmas, which was just so sweet and generous.
So
yeah. So they were like, okay, you just need to get on this plane and fly from here to here, and I'll drive 3 or 4 hours to come pick you up from Philadelphia and all of this crazy stuff. And so I ended up in Pennsylvania for Christmas. And what was their gift to me? A trip to Falling Water.
No way.
Yes.
Did they know you wanted to go there?
Well, we'd spoken about, so if I back when I was in Arizona, because I did drive through the Arizona desert, I was sharing my story with them. I actually, unbeknownst to me, was given directions by the person that was working in the hacienda I was staying at, who said to me, Kylie, do you like architecture? And I said, oh my God, I love architecture. They said, you need to go and visit Taliesin West. And I said, oh, what? And they said, Taliesin West. And I said, can you write that down for me? So the next day, as I was leaving Tucson and driving to Sedona, I did a detour to Taliesin West. Well, it was Frank Lloyd Wright's Western home. So I'd shared that experience over dinner, saying how much I love Taliesin West and how synchronistic it was. So of course they must have noted it in their mind, so that, when I ended up in Pennsylvania, they, that was their Christmas present to me as a surprise. So it was just
that is amazing. It's like I feel like you were on a sort of magic carpet, like Aladdin on the magic carpet, and it was just like taking you through all these synchronicities, which of course Jung talks a lot about synchronicity and serendipity, and it is when you're such in the flow of the universe. And I love to hear about Frank Lloyd Wright, because I love his work, and I knew a beautiful gentleman in England, in Cambridge, where I came from. One of my dad's best friends, Leslie Martin, became a knighted actually, so he was Sir Leslie Martin, and he was a really famous architect around the same time. period.
Wow.
And you know, Taliesin is the Welsh. Do you know who Taliesin is?
No, I
Oh,
don't.
he's a Welsh poet in the mythology of Wales. He's like this incredible magical poet that, you know, creates through his words, and
Oh my
very, very,
goodness.
very special, very honored poet. So
Wow, that's amazing.
interesting. I
And
love this story and
oh,
how it unfolds. And I think when we realize that everything is like part of a puzzle and we relax into that flow, it gives us such a, I don't know if I want to use the word confidence, but it gives us a sort of resting place of like everything is going to work out. Like this sense of destiny is going to unfold. It's already sort of predestined, but we have free will as well, you know, of course.
absolutely. Yeah.
Really interesting. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole experience must have like changed your life in terms of.
Well, it did, Julie. I couldn't go back to the life I'd been living when I arrived home. As you can imagine, I learned so much from that trip. And as I said, you know, it was the first time I'd experienced, you know, joy, freedom, and awe in life itself. And I'd been so miserable my whole life. I'd been an absolute workaholic, you know, as um, and all of this is, you know, childhood programming, that kind of thing, having fear of not having enough money because my dad died when I was really young. So all of these things that just you know, put you in a state of fear, and those survival programs really take over your life versus that connecting with the heart and operating from a place of surrender and trust and love, which is just, you know, obviously the complete opposite. And Bruce Lipton always talks about, you know, there's only two real emotions. It's either love or fear, and that there's kind of like everything else is a variant in between. So yeah, I was just constantly living in fear. So when I got back to Australia, I actually fell into quite a deep depression because although I was like riding on this incredible high from this journey, I did not know how to translate that back into my day-to-day life. You know, it really is one thing to just, you know, let loose, you know, on the other side of the world, you know, on a holiday, a 6-week holiday, but how do you really um, bring that back to your daily life? So I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't go back to the life that I'd been living, which was very constrained and hollowed. Um, and I had absolutely no interest in working because I was feeling so depressed. But I was also, all those survival programs were popping back up again because I was terrified of, I just spent all this money on this trip and now I don't feel like working. So how am I going to survive? Um, and I truly didn't know what to do with myself. You know, and of course you go and see a doctor and all they want to do is put you on antidepressants. There's no, you know, there was kind of no solutions there for me on a conventional path. So, and of course, all I wanted to do is get back on a plane and have another amazing adventure. But, you know, I was wise enough to know that that was purely escapism, and that what I really knew I needed to do was to just give myself some space in my own environment with the resources that I had on hand. And that's pretty much what I did. I gave myself the space and the permission to actually do whatever I felt like doing for 3 months, and kind of really replicate what happened on that trip. So in doing that, I really had to sort of analyze what it was about that trip that made the experience so special and made it so synchronistic. And I sort of realized that firstly I was just doing the things I absolutely loved. Like certainly being in Mexico, I knew absolutely that was it was just no question. That was just something that had resonated with me even since I was a little girl. Like I remember doing projects on Peru and Mexico and all the ancient ruins.
That's so weird because so did I as a little girl when I was like 9 in Cambridge doing stuff on the Toltec heads and all this. I'm like, wow,
Yes.
oh, that's amazing, Kylie. I never knew that. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
right here, right now.
Probably the only thing I remember from school, you know, I just loved it. And getting the National Geographic because they were just so glossy and rich and the photos are amazing. And just that's why I still live, you know, watching ancient civilizations today. And that's where they're the only places I'm really interested in traveling, to be honest. So I was doing the things that I loved. And, you know, of course, in the States, I didn't really know what that was. But as my trip was unfolding, and because I was following my heart and my nose, any opportunity that came up that I thought sounded interesting, I just went, yes, that sounds amazing. So that's how, again, more of those synchronicities happened. So I thought about that a lot. And then a big part of it was because I'd traveled with Greg Brennan, who's just a wealth of knowledge, and we had 10 days with him, and then the conference part, he just, his knowledge is just phenomenal. The things that you learn on his tours are something that you don't even get out of any of his books. So, if anyone is even considering doing one of Greg's trips, I highly recommend it. If you'd like to contact me, I'd be happy to tell you more about them, because I've traveled with him to the Yucatan twice now, Peru once, and Choco Canyon in the US, in New Mexico twice, and Israel as well. So the good thing about traveling, Greg, is you'll have the most amazing time. The bad thing about traveling with Greg, you'll never ever want to travel with anyone else. So
do you know he's coming here to the Gaia in like 10 days for a weekend? He's doing a weekend workshop at the Gaia.
Oh,
yes. I love him. I got to host him last year at the first Gaia event, and now he's coming back full circle. I'm so thrilled. He is really special and incredibly knowledgeable. Unbelievable, almost like encyclopedic.
Oh, absolutely. And what's amazing for me is when he presents, because I've seen a lot of his live seminars and things, and he's actually put in extra slides because he's known that I've been in the audience. So he's already prepared this whole presentation. Then he's like, oh, Kylie, I know you'll be here, so I'm going to add these extra slides just because you haven't seen them before. I mean, who does that? I mean, he on our trips, if something came up, like as a group, he'd then throw a couple of slides in and talk about that the next day. So, and flawless. I mean, like, he never says he never says it's just, it rolls off seamlessly.
He was born to do this. He was born for this time, as were we all. We're all born for this time. Yeah,
exactly. He's the epitome of someone living their purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and in addition to that, he's just one of the most genuine people I've ever met. Such a caring person, a man with a really beautiful heart. But I've got to do a really big shout out to his beautiful wife, Martha, who I just adore. And yeah, she's become a dear friend of mine too. So yeah, they're both very, very special people.
This is marvelous. So yeah, I think the word that comes up for me with him is gem. He's a gem. And then I'm like, oh yeah, wasn't he a geologist? That's so funny.
Yes.
But, he just is. He's the real deal. And
he really is. He really is.
So loving and yet so knowledgeable. He's got that heart-mind thing really happening.
Well, he is on the steering committee of Heart Math, so I think he's been practicing it somewhat, and that's certainly one of the bits of gold that I learned even back in 2012, because he actually walked us through the process, Heart Math's process for creating heart brain coherence. So, and I've been practicing that since then. So
let's go to that for a second, because that's one of the things I want to ask you is about the heart. So you followed your heart, you learned about this for the sort of daily, to how to not be so structured and really follow the impulses of the heart. So I want to ask you that at this time now, what is your heart vision for our world? What do you think's going on?
Oh, that's such a great question. Like, honestly, I feel that we're in such an amazing time. And the reason being is that this whole COVID thing, whether you believe in it or not, I saw it as the most amazing opportunity, because it has given humanity that experience that I had after that trip. Because I ended up spending about 6 months in lockdown, getting to know myself and truly following my heart, and embracing all the things that I loved each day. And a big part of that was listening to the content that I loved and making things with my hands. And so this is where I think humanity has this amazing opportunity to really start to, each and every one of us to take this time when you know, when we are still in lockdown. And hopefully that won't last too much longer, but you know, I wish we were having this conversation 12 months ago, because it would have been the perfect time to introduce this to people. But certainly, you know, learning about what's most valuable to you, what's most meaningful to you, and really start to live from that place, really start to listen to the heart and make all of the decisions based on the wisdom that comes from the heart, regardless of how logical it seems. Because when you can do that, when you can just let go and surrender, that's when the magic starts to happen in life. And it's not about avoiding the tough stuff, but it really is about maybe prioritizing the few things you really have to do today, versus you know, filling your day with all of these to-do things, and just, you know, creating some space for yourself, and doing the things that, taking care of your emotional needs first, and your physical needs first. Because what I find is that when I say to myself, and I do literally check in every moment of every day, I'm saying, what do I feel like doing right now? What do I feel like doing right now? It might be, okay, I need to just go and get a coffee, or it might be just, I need to, you know, make my bed or have a shower or whatever. And by the time I then get to do the things that I need to do, the should do's, I'm in such an emotionally buoyant state that when I actually do the hard stuff, or the things that are more difficult, or I'm not actually, you know, would have found a chore, I'm actually in a great space, and that it comes together really easily and it flows. And then it was like, well, that was easy. That wasn't half as hard as what I thought it would be. So that's one of the big takeaways that I've learned, for sure.
I think you are absolutely accurate in your interpretation of this last year. I think it is a wonderful opportunity to reevaluate everything about our lives. And, you know, working from home, I'm sort of doing the same thing and listening to my heart. And it's so funny, a couple of days ago, I was just like, I think I need to just take a nap, which is so unlike me. It's just not what I do in the middle of a day. And I just lay down for maybe half an hour, 20 minutes, I don't even know, not long, took a little nap. When I got up, I looked on Facebook, and I have a lovely, lovely friend who's a psychic. She's beautiful. Her name is Kirsty Elizabeth. And she had just put something up saying, you know, listen, like self-care. This month is all about self-care, and listen to your body, and whatever it needs, just give it. And I said, oh my gosh, I just took a nap, you know, and she was like, yes, so did I. And we were laughing because it was just like, that's not an everyday occurrence. I'm sure, I don't think I need to do it every day, but just in that moment, for whatever reason, you know, or going to bed earlier, and then I'm having all these amazing dreams.
Yes.
And so I think you're absolutely right. This is just listening in and cooking at home more, not being out so much. And I have loved the time being quiet and going in, you know, and of course I miss, you know, my friends and so forth, and going out and having fun, but I have really enjoyed this sort of hermit time to go deeper and deeper into who am I and what am I here to do now.
Yes. Yeah, it's so important. It's what we need to do to be able to ascend, to take everything to that next level, to truly live from the heart. There's no getting around it. You know, you really have to go within. That's you know, one of my big take homes is, you know, it's about developing an intimate relationship with yourself. And if people don't even know where to begin to do that, I can highly recommend Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. Now, it's not a title that you would necessarily think that's a journey of deep self-discovery, but it's, I think, one of the most powerful resources there is in the market, and it certainly changed my life. And it just gave me ideas to actually start to tap into the things that I might really love or enjoy, and yeah, it was very, very life-changing, that book.
You know, it's actually one of my favorite books, and doing the morning pages, the 3 pages of reading, the brain drain is phenomenal, because when you get to the end of the 3 pages, you're sort of channeling, and you're finding these nuggets of gold, and you're like, how did I get from here to here? You know, where the first page is sort of, you know, I didn't enjoy my day yesterday, or whatever it is, or my kids this and that, or so I love it too. She's amazing. I've heard her here in Boulder speak, and she's a very special woman. So Kylie, we're sort of coming to the end of our time. And so I would love for you to encapsulate, if you can, for our audience, just what would be a couple of nuggets of gold that you could leave them with that really you've learned so much through this journey clearly. So yeah, bring us your golden nuggets, please.
Well, that in a way would probably be my number one, is actually developing an intimate relationship with yourself, because I think the other things I'll share now really stem from that. Um, by developing an intimate relationship with yourself, you'll be able to identify your life's calling. And in my experience, it was the only thing that really gave my life meaning and fulfillment. There's a big difference between passions and purpose, and I do talk about that a lot in my book, Julie, as you would know. So definitely, if you want to have a meaningful and fulfilling life, then absolutely, take the time to find your life's calling. It's not as difficult as you think. There's actually evidence of it woven all throughout your life. You literally need to know where to look and what questions to ask yourself. So it's certainly very possible. The other key factor, I feel, is learning about the power of the subconscious mind. And that, for me, when I understood that, I realized that was all of that subconscious programming, all of those survival programs were the only things that were actually holding me back in life. So when you understand that and think, oh my goodness, it's just these programs that we receive, particularly when we were children, that's holding you back. And the fact that you can actually learn how to reprogram the subconscious mind, that would be, the next tool. And obviously learning some sort of modality to be able to do that. And there's many available, whether it be Psych K or even the emotion code. So both of those, tapping, EFT, neuro-linguistic programming, there's so many. But for goodness sake, whatever you do, definitely learn about the power of the subconscious mind and find some sort of modality that will allow you to actually reprogram your subconscious programming yourself, so that you're not necessarily relying on a therapist to do that work for you. You can do it yourself, and I'm all about self-sovereignty. And the final thing that I think is really, really important is really about taking notice of the things that catch your attention, intrigue you, arouse your curiosity, evoke excitement, and inspire you. And just keep following that, because your life's calling will give your life fulfillment and meaning. But by actually just engaging in all of those little things that inspire, ignite, make you curious, that's kind of like your compass to start heading in the right direction. And when you fully let go and just keep following that, again, regardless of how illogical it seems, you can't help but go wrong. Like, that's the universe is going to conspire with you to bring you all of your wildest dreams, including a visit to falling water, if that's what you aspire to achieve. So yeah, they're my top tips, Julie.
Oh, they are fantastic, fantastic tips. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we are so aligned. I mean, I don't even think I've ever told you, but I've done Psych K for many years. I've got, I do the practitioners. I actually did it on my friend's new little puppy yesterday in surrogation, because puppy was having a hard time with nights. So I did a bunch of balances. So I agree with you about the self-sovereignty. I've always been about that. So finding healing tools that help you. The subconscious piece is massive. It's so important. Following your heart. I love what you said about the intimacy, being intimate with our heart. This is true romance, really. We think of romance so much out there, but it really starts in here with romance with oneself.
Absolutely. And that's one thing, and I didn't mention it at the time, but the title of An Awakened Heart speaks so, deeply to me, because what happened was, when I'd heard the term follow your heart in the past, and the thing is, because I might feel something about someone else romantically, I would then just follow my heart, and it would literally just lead me down this whole track of like self-sacrifice, no boundaries, because I'm just so in love. And really, you're right. Like, it's about finding that love within yourself, that intimate relationship with you first. And then when you do that, the whole world just reflects back to you, because I truly believe that life is the most amazing projector screen ever known to man, and that whatever's happening on the inside is just reflected on the outside. So the moment you change one little thing, whether it be a belief, you release, a trapped emotion, you start changing your thoughts, you take inspired action, or, you practice emotional self-management. Life's an inside job. Your outer world is going to shift, and it will shift for the better, obviously, if you're doing the right things.
Fantastic, Kylie. Oh, I just love this conversation. I feel like we could go on for hours. And
Yes.
of course, I know we cannot, but one thing I just want to say is you are so joyful and so heartfelt. And it is a true joy for me to just be with you in this bubble of amazing energy that we're in right now. And I just thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I'm going to tell you that title, literally came to me. I was like, okay, what? And I was playing around with titles, and then it just dropped in. Adventures of the Awakened Heart. And I was like, that's it. So thank you for sort of feeling into that and knowing the precision with which that came, shall we say, about
Absolutely.
the awakened, not awakening, even awakened. I'm like, okay, aye, guides, I got it. I heard you.
Absolutely. And that really goes back to what I was saying before, is that you were intending for a title, and you wrote a few things down, but then you gave it the space, and then it dropped in. And I do that when I'm writing. I find that if I'm sitting at my computer writing and I'm struggling, if I walk away, all the words just drop down into my mind straight away. So we just all need to take that little bit of space to take care of our own needs and not keep pushing.
Correct. And I'm a poet. I write poetry, so that's exactly how poems come. They just drop in. It's not like I'm going to write a poem and it becomes cerebral. It's not at all like that. It's like the poem is actually calling me, saying, "Would you please write me down?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. what have you got?" And then it just flows in. So thank you, Kylie, for being here with me today. I really love you dearly. You're very special to my heart. And I really mean that with all sincerity. Thank you for your work in the world. And please, for all those listening, please check the links that I'm going to put for Kylie and her book. I highly recommend them. And also, I'll put a link for Gaia. So please join our Gaia community, because we are an amazing community of awakened hearts on this planet. And if you need a community and you don't feel you belong and you're feeling kind of isolated or lonely, come to Gaia. And you're gonna find all of us. So thank you everyone for listening. It's a pleasure. Kylie, thank you again. Many, many blessings to you on your journey. I love you greatly.
I love you dearly too. And I'm so blessed that you came into my life. So thank you.
Thank you, love. Bye, everyone.
Bye.